Which shipping companies or management has impressed you this year?
Yeah, your former guest, I believe. Lars Christian, he's done a fantastic job on Bellship. Doing the right moves, getting good financing, not putting in much money, renewing the fleet all the time, having pretty good coverage, having a very dividend-friendly policy, which is something I subscribe to. So I think he's done a fantastic job on Bellship, which I've told him. Of course, Magnus has done a great job on Bulkers 2020 for sure. I think the guys on, it's only one guy now, on DHT, they also done well, and actually, based on what I saw today, they are the best valued tanker company in the sector. So I think they've been prudent in terms of their capital allocation strategy. So that's to mention some, yeah.
Best books, documentaries you have consumed in 2024? People who follow you on LinkedIn always see, new books, recommendations and stuff, but do you have any you want to recommend the audience to?
I just read, it's probably the most depressing book I read in years. Which, I still on the board of UMO, where Jens Ultvedt, he's been worried about climate change now for 20 years, which, it's a right concern. And I was giving him a book here earlier this year and said, maybe it's time to worry about something else, which is the coming wave of AI, how it's an existential threat. But then I read another book just recently, which is more depressing, which is called Nuclear War, a Scenario, where she's done, Annie Jacobsen, she's done a very thorough research talking to former kind of Department of Defense, former Secretary of State, a huge list of people. And where she describes kind of a scenario how a nuclear attack can escalate. And basically it's a scenario where the world starts with a nuclear attack, one attack, and within 72 hours, the world is destroyed, totally destroyed. And it's kind of, it goes from hour, what happened, and the escalation, because that's the dangerous part with the nuclear war. It's the escalation effect, because, so if, for example, Russia sends a ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile, to US, of course, the shortest route is from Siberia to the lower 48. That will take about 30 minutes. But then, it's in the booster phase, which is like 5 minutes. Then it's starting to get detected, and then it goes into orbit above space. Once it's been confirmed, there is like a 6-minute rule. So the President of America, he will have 6 minutes to decide the appropriate measure. 6 minutes to decide whether to destroy the world or maybe see if it's a false alert. But generally when it goes to that 6 minutes, it's confirmed. So 6 minutes to decide. And then it's a policy which they call use it or lose it. Because if those nuclear missiles is targeting the ICBM silos of US, they will be gone. So then you cannot retaliate unless you're using your submarine. They have 14 Ohio class submarines. So then generally you push the button because you don't want to lose it. And then it's a new retaliation. And once you're getting the submarines, you can place them much closer. Then it only takes like 15 minutes to hit targets. And, basically what happens here is US is using the 1,000 ICBMs, in Russia becomes involved, and we target these various areas. But for the people who are not hit by the nuclear missiles, they should wish they were hit by the nuclear missile because it becomes a nuclear winter. So they are not going to die slowly, they're going to die painfully. So the world is destroyed in 72 hours. And while you go through the book, she goes back and explains a certain of these doctrines and development and the football and all this kind of stuff. So it's really a depressing book. So if you want to be depressed, you should read that book. Especially because you have small states now, like North Korea, who have access to this. And in this book, it's North Korea who's triggering this chain reaction of escalation.
Wow.
So that's one depressing book if you want to read something
You have something optimistic?
less depressing. I think this Money, A Story of Humanity is really good by David McWilliams. Explains the history of money and why it's the greatest invention of mankind. It sounds strange. Somebody will say it's a wheel. Some will say it's writing. Actually, the first written language is a debt. Kind of, you notifying debt for a certain individual have put money into a granary, and then it goes for Lydia, gold coins, the florint, and then into more modern economics with John Law, and how kind of states are swapping their kind of debt into new money and going all the way into crypto. So if that's maybe a book for you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So that's a good combination then. A pessimistic one and then history.
Yeah, but actually what I read the most, every time I'm here I'm talking always a non-fiction book, but I actually read the most fiction books.
Yeah.
And that's usually sci-fi, which is my
Why don't you recommend any sci-fi books then?
I was just reading, and actually now I'm discontinuing. I'm reading the Expeditionary Force book, so I've now just stopped halfway into book 17. It's actually not book 17 because there have been some spin-off books, but the first book, 10 books of that series is brilliant. And then you're hoping that it's gonna stop.
Yeah.
And then there was the book, I believe it's 15 or 16, called Aftermath. And I thought, finally the last book, but no, he's making too much money writing those books, so it goes on a bit too long.
Yeah.